Hi, Sandra Wilson here. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist who works with ADHD and in particular a horrible little symptom called rejection sensitive dysphoria, which funnily enough not very many people have heard of, but it's a huge part of the ADHD experience, and it can show up in all kinds of settings, and in particular the place of work, your work life, your career. So I'm going to do a little series of videos just designed to shed a bit of light on how difficult it can be when you're struggling with feelings of rejection sensitivity and it shows up at work. And maybe you're being held back in your career because even if you're not very happy and it's not really fulfilling you, you're just too scared to apply for new jobs in case you're rejected. Or you find the idea of attending an interview completely terrifying. And there's all kinds of reasons why you won't, or rather can't see yourself pushing yourself forward. But for the time being, let's just focus on some of the little signs that can be very painful if you are struggling with rejection sensitivity in your workplace. So do you find yourself replaying your manager's words over and over and just wondering if you've done something to upset them, whether you've messed up, even when something, what they've said is pretty neutral? And sometimes it just feels that maybe you're just being a little too sensitive. But rejection sensitive dysphoria, even though the word sensitive is in the title here, it doesn't mean that you are too sensitive. So for many women with ADHD, this sensitivity to being rejected can feel a bit like an emotional punch. You might even feel it, you'd feel it physically, even from what feels a little bit like minor criticism or disapproval. And in the workplace, this might look like over-analysing emails, sometimes for tone. What does that person mean? Are they angry with me? Maybe if the email is super abrupt or very short, you might read all kinds of things into that in the same way that you read into what your manager said to you. You might feel completely crushed every time you have a performance review and it is not absolutely perfect. And you just avoid being seen or being heard sometimes, like hiding away because feedback just feels unbearable. So it's not that you're being too sensitive, it's that your nervous system has learned to see potential rejection as danger. So it's dangerous, it doesn't feel safe. And sometimes this can be because in the past you may have been criticised for being too much or not enough. And you did get criticised and had lots of negative labels applied to you. And it's not that you're overreacting, but potentially it's a trauma response. It's a trauma response layered with ADHD's emotional intensity. And it doesn't mean that you are broken, and it certainly doesn't mean you always have to stay this way. Okay, so just because you feel things deeply doesn't mean it has to rip your confidence to shreds, especially when you're at work. And sometimes being sensitive can be massively beneficial. It can put you miles ahead of other people because you're very aware of how people feel. That might stand you in great stead for management. You're very acutely aware of people's feelings. You might be able to show more empathy in your workplace. You're attuned to vibes. You might be able to read that room far better than anyone else. So it does come with benefits as well as massive disadvantages. So the next time you notice your manager talking to you and you read rejection or criticism into it, even though it's a fairly neutral comment, just take a breath, pause and take a breath. You could say, this is my nervous system protecting me. It's not proof that I've done something wrong. And if it feels like too much, and it happens a lot, when you work, if you decided to work with me, when we work together, I can help you build emotional safety. I can help you to train your mind to believe that you are safe, and you can start to build more self-trust, so that feedback no longer feels like a threat, that you no longer feel terror when you think about applying for a new job. It no longer feels like you're going to be swallowed up by a massive insecure wave of emotion every time you think about putting your opinion forward in a meeting. So you'll start showing up at work more grounded and confident and proud of your sensitivity, rather than ashamed of it. So if this sounds like something you think you would like to have in your life, especially at work, just ping me a DM. And I hope you found this video helpful, and I will be back with more content tomorrow. Bye for now.